watched a politician, a very polished, airbrushed, made up politician in a debate with an actual human being, and Coach Walz, which means that the gotcha moments or the misspeaks will probably be on the side of the regular person because he's a regular person. I will say it was definitely more civil than the first debate, than the presidential debate. I guess that was the second debate. It was definitely more civil than Trump Harris, which was good to see. But my concern going into this debate was that somebody like JD Vance is trained to excel in these kinds of environments. It is like taking a standardized test. I went to a prep school. They train you to take standardized tests. They don't necessarily train you in things that would help you excel at an actual job, but they help you excel at the things that are supposed to indicate that you would excel at an actual job. So this debate being something that is supposed to indicate whether or not you can excel at a job is a thing that he would excel at, not actually doing the job. If you overlook facts, if you overlook his running mate and his rhetoric, if you overlook his prior stances, then you would just watch this debate. If you just come in cold and you just watch this debate, you would say, hey, JD Vance looks smooth up there. The problem is your knowledge of the world that we live in, your understanding of who his running mate is, and your understanding of his prior takes on all of these things colors how all of these things land with you. So if you come in cold and just watch it, then you could walk away thinking that he did a pretty good job. But if you're going to sit there and actually process the things that are coming out of his mouth in reality, then you're wondering how in the world this was allowed to go on for almost 2 hours. How do you have a debate with JD Vance, a senator from Ohio, who has spent the last 2 weeks at least deflecting the terrorism that he has caused in his own state because of comments that he made about immigrants that he has admitted on multiple occasions that he made up, and they haven't produced a single person that will go on record and say these things happened, but he's just going to run with it anyway. How you have a debate where you had this man answering questions for 2 hours and it doesn't come up? How? How do you have JD Vance answering questions for 2 hours and that doesn't come up? We know that almost all of the issues that were brought up, whether it be abortion, whether it be immigration, whether it be education, whether it be our federal government, almost all the issues that were brought up are covered by Project 2025. Unlike Trump, who's mentioned in Project 2025 and disavows knowledge of Project 2025, which I've given my take on that. It really doesn't matter. But unlike Trump, JD Vance cannot say, I've never heard of Project 2025, because he wrote the foreword for Project 2025. So the man wrote a foreword for a 1,000-page treatise on a conservative reshaping of America that touches on almost all of the things that you asked. And you didn't bring it up? You didn't bring it up? Because he can't say, I've never heard of it. I would love to know what his answer is on that. He can't say that. I don't understand how we have a 2-hour debate with JD Vance and neither one of those things comes up. It took an hour and a half to get to January 6th. January 6th is more of a Trump thing, but sure, that ended up being Coach Walz's furious comeback. I thought he did a phenomenal job on January 6th. I thought that was one of the moments where, again, I said it was like a politician and a regular person, because normal people have a certain sense of decorum that we operate with. Politicians used to, not these ones. Coach Walz was operating with a sense of decorum that we haven't seen in these political interfaces for quite some time, but I've been waiting for him to shed that to go at Vance the way he needed to be gone at. And he finally did that when it came to January 6th, which I was appreciative of. I was very happy to see that. He asked him the question that had to be asked, which was, did he lose the 2020 election? Knowing, it's funny because I just put out that I put out the Crockett video, but also put out the Lindsey Graham video where Lindsey Graham said, if I was Mark Robinson, I would sue CNN, knowing he can't actually sue CNN because then they would have to go to discovery and he don't want them kind of problems. JD Vance can't say that Trump lost the election, and you know that. So one of two things is going to happen. Either he's going to say it anyway and cause a massive civil war within MAGA. He probably would have got dropped from the ticket. I bet you that dude, Trump's so crazy, he probably would have dropped Vance from the ticket. If he would have said on October 1st, yeah, he lost the 2020 election, I bet you Trump would have dropped him from the ticket. Anyway, he could have either done that or he has to double down on Donald Trump's election lies, which is phenomenal to draw that contrast on October 1st. Phenomenal job. Phenomenal job. When I get into my job is going to be much easier than I thought it was going to be when I get to breaking all this down, because I'm looking at JD Vance's. JD Vance was like Neo with his ability to deflect and never answer any questions. But that particular section was so insane that he was asked a question about certifying the election in 2020, and he somehow diverted into talking about censorship. It was so absurd that I can just focus on that. So I'm just going to focus on that. I mean, the man was asked about gun violence and he started talking about immigration. And I appreciated what was said. I think it was Matt who was in the chat that says 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but with immigrants. That was the answer for guns. That was the answer for fentanyl. That was the answer for what? Healthcare. Healthcare costs coming up because the immigrants coming in and they're taking all the medicine. That the answer for shoplifting. The immigrants coming in and they taking all the razors. That's why Byron Donalds had to press the button when he went into CBS because all the immigrants coming in and doing smash and grabs. That's the answer for the housing crisis is immigrants, which I appreciated. They're eating all the pets. The illegal immigrants are eating all the pets, but also qualifying for the 30-year fixed loans. That was well done. You have to enter this debate with no knowledge or understanding of who these people are or what they're talking about to feel good about what JD Vance did here tonight. And I just don't understand what we're doing. Like, I'm like, if we're just not going to hold people accountable to reality at all, then what are we doing? What are we doing? I was like 10 minutes into this debate, I said, oh, Tim Walz seems nervous. JD Vance, lying and deflecting. More lying and deflecting, more lying. Okay, all right. Well, so what are we going to get out of this then? If that's what he's going to, if you're not going to say nothing about it, that's just what it is. It's like watching a basketball game and Bronny inbounds to LeBron, which sadly is a thing that's actually going to happen. It's like watching a basketball game and Bronny inbounds to LeBron and he just carries the ball on his hip all the way up the floor and lays it in the basket. Like, so we're just not, he don't have to dribble or nothing. Like you just going to let him walk the ball all the way. Y'all not going to say nothing? Like we just, so then what are we doing here then? Is this a basketball game? Like I thought this was a basketball game. Crazy. JD Vance he mentioned one of my just pet peeves. One of my all-time pet peeves is the mental illness scapegoat for guns, where you talk about how we have a mental illness epidemic in this country, which is so wild. And like we have a mental illness problem in this country. Yeah, the mentally ill people are also getting the guns. Do you want to address that? The fact that you can't keep the mentally ill people from getting the guns, you just want to ignore that part. Because here's the thing, mental illness is going to happen. You know what I mean? I don't think we're going to eradicate mental illness, but you just want to keep their ability to get guns. Is that what okay. All right, cool. Word. It's insane to me that I don't know. Like I cannot believe we really sat there and had JD Vance spinning plates and Coach Walz pinned him. Coach Walz pinned him with January 6th. But you don't ask him the clear questions. Like, what are the top 3 things you would want to hear from JD Vance? I would say, I mean, I can't speak for everybody. For me, actually, I would want him to disavow doing Peter Thiel's bidding. That probably would be in my top 3. He would have to answer for Project 2025. Like it's crazy to me that he skates on that when he doesn't have the out that Trump does, which is also absurd, but he can't even say that. 2025 would definitely be there. I mean, his hatred for women and childless Americans, that probably would be number 3. But the Ohio thing, I mean, that's in the top 5. We just not going to talk about that. We're just not going to talk about that. I don't understand. Your running mate just advocated for the purge, and we just not going to ask. We just not going to ask about it because here's the thing. This is the vice presidential debate. So I don't care how good his ideas are. If his running mate talking about the purge, then he got to do the purge. So you might want to ask him that. Crazy. Oh, boy. Let me see what y'all are talking about. I know it's been a late night. I appreciate y'all staying up and rocking with me. It's a beautiful thing, Harris Walz Coalition building. Shout out to Ms. Ra. I appreciate you staying up and rocking with us. It's been a long time. It's been a long night. MAGA stands for mentally absent, generally awful. Oh, yes. As Ms. Ross said, please thank your sponsor if you were gifted a membership. I just learned that that's how that works. I thought you had to fight it out. Like that one violent night that Donald Trump was talking about. I thought it was a purge situation. Here's the state of play. I'm going to clip my ending, and I might have to clip the section where I reacted in real time to his his comments about January 6th. Like I might just have to put that in my live reaction.
And said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th. Senator Vance, you have said you would not have certified the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Laura, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said, and that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president, Donald Trump left the White House, and now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation. I think that is a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that we've seen in this country in the last 4 years, in the last 40 years. Now, I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by 2 lifelong blue-collar Democrats, to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic coalition. And of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle. Yeah, well, look, Tim, first of all, it's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We're going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we'll win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But
that's like saying Ron Artest peacefully left the malice in the palace. Like
in 2000.